Excited to kick this off. We're going to be talking about digital media outlooks for 2024 and beyond. Got a wonderful panel here. I'm excited to chat with all of you. We'll just get right into it. A lot of perspectives and a lot of different pieces of industry. So in terms of technology, what emerging trends do you foresee having a significant impact on the digital and media industry this coming year? And really what that nets down to is, what are the frontiers you're most excited to explore in the near future? What are you really looking forward to? So, whoever wants to tackle that one first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for staying, those of you who did. I think obviously there's a lot happening with AI and VR and AR, and so we're thinking a lot about that and thinking about ways to use that as a tool. I'm in the entertainment industry. I work for Hartbeat, which is a multi-platform entertainment company that's started by Kevin Hart. So I think in our world, it's really about thinking about how we can use it as a tool. I think we're also thinking like our content, we think about how people can consume it across multi-platform. So I think it's about making that that sort of seamless integration across all the platforms. So that's something that we're thinking about a lot. And then the thing that I'm really excited about thinking about is live streaming. I think that's going to be a really big part of everything that we do in the future. And I think there's something really interesting about people globally experiencing something, experiencing content, experiencing a moment at the same time, no matter where they are. So that's what we're going to be focused on.
I'll go next, I guess. Good afternoon, everyone. Domonic, we're an Arizona-based casino company, brick and mortar for casinos. So our use of digital and platforms and new things that are coming our way are a little bit different than what e-commerce businesses utilize. Ours is we're trying to get sectors where we can see the habits and behavior of people, which channel of media they choose, so we can get our content specifically tailored towards them. It's weird, you would think that they're all the same platform, but they all operate and they all target different areas. So our approach through content and through our narrative, what we're saying, we're trying to make sure that's aligned in how we distribute things. And so every step that we take into the process, whether you see a digital media ad, how that correlates to the social, that we're keeping you through the step process. So we're using technologies. We have Salesforce as well. So we're using that to kind of channel these and omni-channel streamline our consumers.
Hi, I'm Stuckey. I lead strategy and transformation for Mars Wrigley, so we get to focus on amazing brands like M&M's and Snickers and Skittles. We, as a CPG company, we've been really focused on figuring out how to move from a manufacturer-led organization to a consumer-first organization. And so with that, we're looking at all of the new technology that's coming out as ways to connect with our consumer better. So we look at it more as the technology enabling what we want to do versus being the shiny object and the shiny object just for the sake of the shiny object. So what that looks like is really transforming how we leverage data and insights and use that data and insights to drive better content creation. We have never been a company that has been focused on extreme targeting or even segmentation. We've really looked at our products really appeal to everyone. So how do we make sure that we are being more focused with making sure that our content is relevant to the consumers that we're trying to reach. So that has involved a lot of changing ways of working within our internal sales, media, and marketing teams, and making sure that they're more closely aligned and really reflecting the new consumer journey, which is very nonlinear, right? And so you can go on TikTok, or a consumer can go on TikTok and see content for the first time and then make a purchase right away. So it's really figuring out how do we get in front of the consumer at the right time when they are in the right moments of wanting to purchase our product.
And I'm Katherine, and I'm from Orozco, Ingelheim, and we are a German pharma company, and we focus on human health as well as animal health. So the brands that you might know is Guardians, for
type 2 diabetes for human pharma, and or like NextGuard for animal health. And what we're thinking about is something actually possibly different. We're trying to bring in or rather incorporate sustainability goals into our digital advertising. Probably you know, but digital advertising emits a lot of carbon. Actually, all the server farms are more, they emit more carbon than the entire aviation industry. So we're trying to live up to our sustainability goals, and we're trying to provide a path for optimization for our digital and programmatic ecosystem, and have goals to reduce the carbon emission. So that's what we're looking into.
Thank you, everybody as well. Great perspectives. Some the same, some very different. As we think about all these technological advancements and we start to think about, content and messaging and how we're going to be sort of thinking about sustainability, what all of this kind of leads back to is human connection and the intersection of technology and human connection and content. This is your role particularly, but I would love to sort of see, as you're thinking about your outlook in the future, how are you thinking about getting closer to human connection and being more authentic with your consumers, your audiences, your customers?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about, as I was saying, kind of about making sure that we have content that is wherever, whenever, and however consumers want to consume it. So if you're somebody who wants to listen to a podcast on the way to work, then you can listen to that in Sirius in your car. If you want to listen to a podcast while you're working out, you can listen to an Apple podcast. If you are somebody who's visual and you want to watch, you can watch it on YouTube. Or if you're somebody who's like, I don't have an hour or two to spend on this podcast, just give me the highlights, and here's the snackable pieces that we have on TikTok. So that's like one way that we're thinking about it. We're also thinking about it, we always talk about our content in the lens of humor, heart, and heat. So we're using humor into everything that we do. Again, founded by Kevin Hart, so that's kind of in our DNA, and we think of humor, heart, and heat as kind of his DNA and our company DNA. So there's adding laughter to everything that we do. It doesn't have to be laugh out loud, but like smile, elicit some kind of emotion. And then heart is really about that emotional connection, human connection, and heat is about morality and making sure that the content that we have has a global audience for it. But I think when we bring all three of those things together, it helps to humanize a brand, and that's what we're doing. And we feel that if you're humanizing a brand with the content, then it's a lot easier to have those brand messaging conversations.
I see a pattern happening here.
I know.
For us in the casino business, that's right. In the casino business, we noticed that there was a time 2 or 3 years ago where you could have the same company go out and shoot content and you display it through all your platforms. We're noticing that now you're having to devote a little more time to content. It requires a lot more. There's a lot more content coming out, so it's all over the place. What we noticed is if we can channel specifically and simplify exactly what we're going for in each channel, which you can tell now through a bunch of metrics. You can tell how many people, how long they stay on certain things and what's triggering their appetite. What we've done is we've actually segmented our content capture groups. So we went from 1 to about 4 content companies. And these companies are broken out into individual sources saying you are the one that's back out or entertainment, showing that sneak peek kind of vibe, pool parties, etc. That's you. You are more the informative around group sales, anything that we need. So we kind of separated them out to what they're strong at and get them specific, because one thing I know, I was in the agency world for a small stint. One thing I noticed is that as you bounce around from brand to brand, it's hard to really channel all of your effort towards one brand, and you lose focus. So we try to keep them focused and dedicated to what they're good at.
We have some similar commonalities. So for us, we're really focused on evoking emotion, right? So we want people to laugh, cry, or we want to be useful to them. So what that looks like in our content is we have very iconic advertising. So Snickers, you're not eating when you're hungry. That is a campaign that's been running for over a decade and is still relevant today because it taps into a consumer insight that everybody understands. When you're angry, you're not eating when you're hungry. So, so when we think about how that evolves into different platforms, it is very important to make sure that so we have a consistent campaign, but we also make sure that our content is relevant for the platform that the consumer is in, right? So the way we come out on a TikTok, or the way we develop ads for TikTok will be very different than Instagram, right? So TikTok is much more like scrappier, and we would be looking at having UGC in a different way than on Instagram, which is much more around showing everybody your more polished version of yourself. So we've done a lot of work around figuring out how does our message resonate the best on the platforms that we're focused on, and not every platform makes sense for the messaging that we're trying to evoke. So that is something that we're constantly looking at, but also making sure that we're not just developing a ton of assets and a ton of content that isn't going to be consumed. Because I think that that's one of the things, particularly for just digital in general, is that there's this obsession with wanting to create hundreds and thousands of pieces of assets, but we're really focused on making sure that we're developing quality assets that can be really, really relatable in the platforms that we're on.
That's a very good point. So for us, it is really the segmentation, like more developing the right content for the right segment audience, and using the insights to actually get to the emotional connections with those segments. Like an example from the animal health business is that pet owners can be segmented into, for example, young married couples that are buying a puppy because it's sort of a little trial run for having a baby, and there's a huge disposable income, so the puppy is very much humanized. Then there is a second segment, which is a family-owned, pet, and it's usually, a decision driven by the kids, and sometimes, the puppy gets delivered by Santa or whoever else, but that's another segment for pet owners. And the third one is maybe the empty nesters. Very often the kids leave the household, and you want to have a companion that loves you unconditionally, so you get a puppy or a cat. So anyhow, I think that we are focusing on those insights and the segmentation and building those emotional connections with pet owners, because pets are very close to our hearts, or probably segments actually. So we have a lot of room to play with those insights that develop great connections that then it gets translated to the right content, to the right segment.
Can I add? Yeah, these are all good points. One thing I'll say is...
Thank you for breaking it
Yeah,
up.
no, of course, I'm breaking it up, that's what we do. Just when you think you're winning, you're not. Casino business. One thing I noticed about digital, social media, whatever you do, digital media, I look at advertising as different layers. I think, you look at commercials, you look at billboards out of home, etc. But that's one touch point. You only have about 5 to 30 seconds to tell your story about what your brand is. Then you go into more on property activation, or maybe they see things, you get a little bit deeper on what you provide as a product. Social media for us is one that we can do a little bit different, a deeper dive to who we are and our DNA as a brand. So you can target different things. We are a community-based casino, so we have 25,000 Native American community members that live off the resources that we provide. Consumers may think about when they play a little bit different when they know they're to a greater cause of livelihood, and so you can't show that on a TV spot. If you did, it would cost you tons of money to rechange that all the time. So we use digital media because it's easier and quicker and cheaper to target those kind of heartstring moments and give a little deeper look into who we are and why we exist. Why should you support our brand? So I think it's interesting, and to your point, there are great points.
Yeah, just such different perspectives with similar sort of use cases for relevancy. All right, so sort of switching gears, but since we're talking about segmentation and audiences and all makes sense in certain environments, I think it's relevant. But the digital ecosystem grew up with a reliance on third-party cookies. Their demise is happening right now. Everything is changing. What sort of marketing and solutions have your teams put in place to prepare for this moment? There's a lot of talks about big data, first-party data. Where do you sort of see this sort of changing now that the cookie demise is underway? And anyone or
Can I pass the mic and skip this one? That's totally smarter than I am.
Yeah.
And I pay people to do that, so
Yeah.
you know this, right? I told me I have it. Sorry.
Yeah, so I would say back to, I mean, because we never really employed targeting in the more traditional way of doing things, I don't think it's affecting us as much as more people who are more e-commerce focused, right? So that being said, this has been coming for a long time. So it isn't a big surprise. I kind of feel like when mobile phones were becoming big, it was like, this is going to be their mobile phone, and then it wasn't. And then, so I feel like it's a little bit of that. I mean, obviously, Safari and Firefox haven't been collecting third-party cookies for a long time. And so I think we have been making sure that as we become a more data-driven organization, that we are collecting more first-party data, so phone numbers, email addresses, et cetera, and then also making sure that we are looking at different ways of connecting with our consumers that go beyond just the traditional kind of programmatic way of looking at things. So, yes, I mean, it is, Google Chrome is, I think they're doing it like 1% at a time, and each percent is like 30 million people. So it's a massive switch, but I feel like we're in a pretty good place in terms of figuring out like how do we make sure that we have the right search strategies? How do we make sure that we're collecting other types of data and understanding how consumers are on the platforms, how they're searching, what are they looking for when they're searching, and so figuring out different ways of connecting with our consumers that isn't so reliant on that third-party cookie data.
So we have a few strategies for, obviously we're a pharma company, so we target healthcare professionals. That's for our pharmaceutical RXs, it's our main target audience, and we do a lot of HCP direct targeting, but in this area, we do deploy programmatic, but we also do traditional list matching, where we target the physicians by the MPI number. So in this area, we do have true and tried and old ways of targeting the healthcare professionals. But in the programmatic area, we're also looking into different platforms that come up with new and innovative. They were preparing for the death of the cookie that was coming, and maybe came.
It's very slow death.
Yeah, slow death. But there is these pieces out there that use the signals, so it's much more than a cookie. It's different layers of data and identifying your audiences to be able to target sort of in a more predictive way where your audiences are. They are also sustainable, so I don't want to be selling, the vendors here or the providers, but there are solutions out there that use signals and predictive analytics to identify your potential audiences versus the traditional cookie tracking.
Thank you. My next question is more around emotion and empathy, and when you think about your brands and your experiences, what kind of emotions and understanding are you trying to convey out that goes beyond data, whether you're using influencers or your creative, your content, or the experiences? How could you sort of elaborate how your teams are using human emotion to go deeper with their consumers, getting beyond data?
I can start. Mix it up a little bit.
I love it.
So I think that the human emotions, especially for a pharma company, is so, important because at the end of the day, it is the empathy that drives your connections with the patients, not only the human patients, but also, animal patients. So empathy is something that's core values of our company, and we are a privately owned company that existed for 180 years, and we're sticking to our core values of building trust, using empathy, and building well-being and health, equity for generations to come. We don't need to chase quarter-over-quarter's earnings and earnings calls, so perhaps we have a bit of a more playing, room to be, empathetic with our patients and audiences that we're trying to connect with.
I mean, ours is definitely about laughter and humor, as I was saying. So, that's, for us, is the way that we're connecting. And I think there's nothing more universal than laughter. If we talk about the fact that laughter sounds the same anywhere in the world. So even if you write it out differently or something that connects with you is different, the way that you hear it is the same. So there is really nothing that's more universal. So that's what we really use in everything that we're doing, but in ways that are surprising. So sometimes we might be working with a pharmaceutical company and work with their tech, and we're using laughter into advertising about allergy medication. Or last year we did something for Venus about women's personal care, and it's called a pubic service announcement. So poking fun around, that kind of, your crown down there. So, that's what we use in order to connect with people.
I think we're kind of along the same lines in terms of, like I said earlier, evoking some kind of emotion with consumers, whether that making them laugh, making them cry, or being useful. I think the reason why that's so important for us is we are such a impulse purchase brand. So when you get to the shelf to buy our product, we have to make sure that we have that is physically there, but that also from a mental availability perspective, that people are remembering the quirky Skittles ad that they saw somewhere, and that's very hard for a traditional candy company to ensure that we are making sure that we're relevant to consumers, because nobody's going to drive around town for a Snickers bar, but how do we make sure that when they get to that aisle, they have that sense of connection with our brand? And I say aisle, but it could be a digital aisle as well. So really making sure that we are developing that content, that creative, that just evokes any kind of emotion, that just makes people smile and brings some lightheartedness, especially, it can be a heavy world, so we're here to invoke more fun and bring more moments of everyday happiness.
So for us, 2 years ago, we incorporated the mission and vision of the company into our advertising efforts. We were for 5 years very focused on the brand only. We never injected the mission and vision of why we exist and why we do things. We are not publicly traded. Our revenue has an impact not only 25,000 members in Native American culture, it also injects into the state income tax. And so there's a broad ripple effect that happens with the revenue. We've been using our digital to do that, whether it's philanthropic towards health or kids, because we are a gaming company. We asked our consumer, well, what should we donate to if we were going to donate? They said, help the kids. And we kind of knew that was going to happen, which is fine. So we use it there, but the mission and vision of the company, I think, if I can give any advice, I think it lacks in a lot of brands. And I think it's too tunnel vision on the brand itself and not the reason we exist. So that's how we use digital media.
I love that. I think for us, our mission is keep the world laughing together. And so there's this whole idea that if people can laugh together, then they can live together, and if they can live together, they can live together. So I do think that's really important. I like to have that infused in everything that you you, and it helps to be able to say no to certain projects if you're clear on who you are.
I just want to build on this. I think it's so important when actually the vision and the mission of your company is integrated with your advertising effort of what to stand for. For us, it's unwavering optimism, and and I think that we utilize it really well when it comes to also the creative development and the rebranding effort that we just went through. And so what I wanted to highlight is also use of music for some of our commercials, and those commercials with especially original and or music sometimes that it's not original but has been incorporated really well to create it, have a very strong recall, much stronger than the commercials without. So I think those are
The one area we saw was an opportunity, and the reason we changed to it was because we were going through a hiring phase. And we looked and we go, okay, how do you hire people that versus just going out there and say we're hiring? And that's what you typically see, we're hiring and there's a value we put out there, but there's no emotional value of why you wake up every morning for a mission. So we took that opportunity in our agency, built some campaign called Moment Makers. And we're in the hospitality business, and they highlighted features of employees, and it got to their heartstrings. Actually got in the room, and it was super dark, and they were like, why do you work for us? And they got some had emotions of crying, some were talking about their family. So when people were applying for this, we got a chance to show our mission and our vision, but we also got to inject the humanality of this. And when people came into the casino, they go, oh, there's Domonic, my table game dealer. I know your family, I know your kids because I saw what you were doing. So it kind of naturally just let us evolve into that. So it's a good opportunity though, when you're hiring, good time for mission and vision.
Thank you. So I think we're almost out of time, but if anybody has a quick question or two for these folks, don't hold your peace. Go for it. We've all been in meeting rooms the entire time, right?
That's a great question.
You guys see anything?
We've seen nothing.
That's a great question. I think for me, what I notice is that this is a technology conference, is my assumption, right? It's my first time I've actually done this. So I looked at it and I'm like, casinos, brick and mortar in an area of a space like this doesn't exist. And I think my biggest learning is that there is a common thread amongst all, like you stated. I think we talk about sharing best practices within the same industry. We very rarely go out to other industries and go, what do you do and how do I consume your best practice and do it? I might get a nugget or two. I've learned tons off these ladies. I'm the only guy here, if you guys didn't notice, on this panel. But I could take something from this and pharmaceutical, entertainment brand. You can hear it, right? I say sneakers yesterday, like it's cool. But I think it's just something from every other industry.
Yeah, I have, I've been going to CES on and off for the past decade. So what I think is really exciting is just the continued advancement of different technologies that seemed so small like a few years ago and just continuing to advance and evolve over the years. They're thinking about things in a way that I wouldn't have even thought of is really interesting. For example, Mark Cuban was here yesterday, and he said something that really resonated with me, which was, the year that you were born isn't the year that you're currently living in. And so thinking about the younger generation growing up with AI friends, for example, is like a really, I'm like, wow, fake friends, but are they really fake, So I think and figuring out, where do brands fit into that? Do they fit into it? So just seeing that evolution is really, really cool.
Yeah, I think we're going to build on this because we just came from an exhibit hall and we saw Moxie, Amazon robot that teachers can teach kids and tells them about everything pretty much, right? I don't know if there's an application. I can see the application maybe for animal health a little bit there, but oh my goodness, we're not going. Our kids or maybe my kids are a little older, but maybe all my kids are not going to meet real friends. They might have Moxie. And that's going to be it, because Moxie is very nice. It'll answer all your questions. I'll never bully you. And, it just seems like this ideal virtual world. So why not live in that, right? And then where the brands come in, that Moxie might be actually disposing medication for my pet in the future. I mean, it's amazing, but, that's the thing.